Oh, what is up, everybody, and welcome to a brand new video. I just got done with a super cold run. It was probably about 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Maybe I think it slipped down to like 25 degrees Fahrenheit. But I just wanted to make a quick video about very actionable concepts or ideas when you're running in cold weather. Now, this is a lot of things that I actually picked up from the military, because in Afghanistan, man, it's actually really cold there. So we were in this one province where there was a lot of snow. It was really cold. It slipped down into single digits on some of the missions, and we would always go out at night. So those missions were absolutely freezing. We were all kitted up. We were carrying probably around 60 to 100 pounds. Sometimes I actually carried the Carl Gustav, which is like a big recoilless freaking missile launcher, pretty much rocket launcher, whatever you want to call it. But I was carrying over probably around 80 to 100 pounds of full gear. That's my kit, my rifle, all my ammo, my radios, because I was a team leader, and then the Gustav and a couple rounds when I actually was the solo Gustav gunner on that mission. That was a super weird setup, but sometimes it had to be done just to cut down on weight and cut down on people on mission. But nonetheless, this is about running. This is about cold weather gear. So the biggest thing that you don't want to do is overdress and wear the wrong things when you're actually running outside and it's cold out, just because you're going to be producing so much sweat, and that sweat can freeze over. And if you sweat through your clothes and it's frozen on the top, then you're going to be in bad shape. So how I always think about it is trying to trap in heat as much as possible. And there's one big concept. It's tight and loose. So this is what I was wearing at 25 to 30 degrees temperature, right? So this is just a simple windbreaker, right? A very simple thin windbreaker, and then a long sleeve shirt. So this long sleeve shirt will trap in the sweat that I am producing while I'm running, and then the windbreaker is going to be trapping in all that heat. So you can get away with running or get away with working in really cold weather as long as you're moving and as long as you're active and continue that movement, producing that heat and then getting it trapped in with this windbreaker. The only really thing you kind of need is a windbreaker, and you can get away with running in weather. Probably, I usually don't start upgrading until maybe around 20 degrees Fahrenheit and below. If it gets any colder than that, then, or if you're if you get really cold really easily, then you want to start thinking about plugging all the holes in your windbreaker and your clothes. So that's just trapping in more and more heat. So what I'll do is I'll zip this all the way up, wear a neck gaiter or a scarf, and that plugs the giant hole that's in your neck, and that's trapping more heat. I'll tuck in my shirt, of course, and that will help trap in the max amount of heat also. One other thing, another concept on that is covering as much skin as possible so no heat experience. So it's very easy to just get, I know not a lot of people like wearing tights or spandex or anything like that, but it really does help keep in that heat in your lower body. I don't like being cold at all. I hate being cold, so I try to cover up as much skin as possible. So if you can see, hold on, let me jump up on this. All right, so this is what I got. I got my tights on, and then I got these compression sleeves over. So this is a 3/4 tight with the compression socks. So that covers my whole leg, and I have long sleeve or longer socks also. So every single part of my lower body is covered. And since there's so much blood flow in your legs, you don't have to really worry about trapping in that heat that much, just because you're going to be producing, or you're going to have a lot of blood flow no matter what, as long as you're working and moving as much as possible. Same thing goes with your extremities or your little hands and your feet. These are amazing gloves. They're like a mitten hybrid. So It's just a thin glove and then a waterproof mitten that just slips over your hand, right? And it's the same concept. So I was reading a lot of reviews on these gloves, and a lot of people were saying, oh, my hands just got really, really wet and then cold. And that's exactly what you want to happen, is your hands to get kind of wet, and it almost acts like a wetsuit. That's kind of the same concept with these gloves. So this gets wet and it gets trapped in this waterproof mitten, and it just heats it up. Now your thumb isn't in the glove. So if your thumb starts getting cold, I just kind of bunch it up like this and it keeps it nice and warm. I've worn these gloves probably in 15-degree weather before, and I've had no problems. Probably in single digits, they'll probably start getting a little bit colder. I might have to go into something a little bit bigger, but anything above 10 degrees, 15 degrees, I've had no problems with these really thin gloves. And these actually work with your cell phone also, so that's nice. You don't have to take off your glove and swipe or anything crazy. For your hat, it's kind of the same concept. Typically, I'll just wear a gaiter and put it over my head. I got this awesome Dragon Ball Z beanie, so I had to rock it. This got a little bit wet. If it starts getting really cold, I try to find something that's actually water wicking, so it doesn't collect a bunch of water and then start freezing over, and it's basically just having an igloo on your head. But that's really simple information on running in cold weather. It's just trapping in the heat. Now, a lot of people try to go into and like get all these weird technology where it's like a heated hat and hand warmers. I've in the past, in Afghanistan, in running, I just feel like it's just way too complicated. It ends up being more shit that you have to wear, or more shit that you have to actually carry with you. Just think of the concept of trapping in the heat. Think of dressing with a tight layer and then a loose layer to really trap in that heat. Now, when it gets down into those single digits, then you want to think about getting a thicker or a base layer, or a top layer that is better at trapping in heat as much as possible. Windbreakers still breathe a little bit, so when it gets down in those single digits, when it gets below 10 degrees or so, I will actually change this jacket out for a waterproof jacket, like a rain jacket, and that does an absolute amazing job in trapping in all the heat. Now, when you do that, you do really have to mitigate or pay attention to how much you're sweating, because you don't want to over sweat inside. So just think, you just kind of have to unzip, air it out every once in a while just to dry up some of that sweat, or maintain some of that, not maintain, but regulate some of that sweat. And then once you start getting cold, zip it back up, trap in that heat again. And then you just kind of keep doing that over and over again to really help ventilate and regulate your sweat and your heat as you're running outside. Hey guys, Editor Wayne here. Just wanted to fill in some gaps and put in some context to this video. If you guys didn't catch it in the beginning, I was actually just getting done with an 18-mile run that I was doing outside. This was probably one of the longest long runs that I actually did since the 100-miler about a month and a half ago. So I got absolutely worked on that run. I was doing some progressive intervals just because we're working towards a marathon in February. So we're starting to throw in some progressive intervals and a little bit of speed play, tempo play in these long runs, which I typically don't do on long runs. Usually long runs are just like zone 1, zone 2 for as many miles as possible, just building up that aerobic base. But now we're actually starting to put some speed in it, and my body's not used to it, and it's kicking. It absolutely kicked my ass. So you saw my eyes all red, my nose all red. It's because I was putting in some work in that cold weather. So if I do seem like all over the place, it's just because of that. Just to kind of put in or fill in some gaps, when I was saying loose and tight, that's how I actually dress. So the base layer is always as tight as possible, so it's really, really tight to your body. And then as it gets colder and colder, I start putting on layers. So I'll have a tight long sleeve shirt, and then I'll put on a shirt to make my core nice and warm. And then if it gets really cold, I'll have like a waffle top, like a military waffle top or something like that, and still the windbreaker on top of that. Now, if it's raining or snowing, or if it's really, really cold, like single digits, that's when I'll start throwing on that actual waterproof jacket to really keep in as much heat as possible, and so that it doesn't start freezing over if I start over sweating, or if it's starting to get wet from the outside also. And additionally, on top of that, another thing that I forgot to mention is when you start your runs, you should be a little chilly. You should be a little bit cold. You shouldn't be just standing there starting to sweat or anything like that. That just means that you probably overdressed. So when you start your run, you kind of want to be a little bit chilly, probably within the first 10 minutes to first mile or two. That's when you'll start warming up, because that's when you're gonna start getting that base layer of sweat. It's gonna get trapped in that clothes. Your body's gonna start releasing some of that body heat, and then your waterproof jacket or your windbreaker is gonna trap in that heat, and that's what's gonna keep you nice and warm. And then if you start putting in more and more effort, if you're doing those progressive long runs, like when I was doing the progressive intervals for this run, I unzipped every time that I started an interval, just to make sure that I wasn't overproducing heat and then starting to oversweat or overheat like that. But let's wrap up this video. I got a nice little intro for you. I got all amped up like I always do when I go and run and try to shoot these videos. But make sure that you like and subscribe, because we're gonna have a lot more videos coming. Let's get back into the video. So once again, just to wrap up the video, just think about trapping in that heat. As it gets colder, plugging up the holes, adding in layers in your base layer, and then zipping up and regulating that sweat and that heat as you're throwing in intervals by zipping this up and down as your effort or as your actual workout progresses. So don't try to overthink it. Just, think about trapping in that heat and keeping it nice and simple. Once again, do not let the weather stop you from your runs, stop you from your goals. Go out there, absolutely crush it. It doesn't matter if it's snowing, doesn't matter if it's raining. Just think properly, think tactically, and get your work done. Get out there, crush it, become an average savage. Let's go. Let's get through this winter and come out in spring and absolutely crush our next goals. Let's go.